She placed a deadly bet, defeat her champion, and she would be his HFY. The twin suns of Zephyra hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the vast arena city. Towering structures of polished metal and alien stone surrounded the central Colosseum, gleaming under the golden light. The city itself was alive with energy, a constant hum of movement, chatter, and alien technology that reminded humans of how far behind they were in the galaxy. Among these bustling streets walked Captain Elias Vorn, a human who had seen his share of battles and survived. But today, he felt a sense of unease he had never known before. Elias was not the kind of person to be intimidated easily. He had grown up on the edges of human colonies, places where survival depended on sharp wit and quick thinking. Humans might not have the raw strength or enhanced abilities of other species, but they were adaptable, resilient, and clever. Elias had proven this time and again in small skirmishes, in missions where his strategies had saved entire squads. Yet nothing had prepared him for this, facing Lady Zyra, one of the most feared figures in the galaxy, in her own arena. Lady Zyra was notorious not just for her wealth and power, but for the way she ruled her domain with absolute control. Her champion, a genetically enhanced fighter, was the jewel of her reputation. No one had ever defeated him, and those who had tried had disappeared into the memory of the arena. Today, she had issued a challenge, one that would determine the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy. If Elias could defeat her champion, Lady Zyra promised to recognize humans as a species worthy of respect. If he failed, the humiliation would be monumental, and the consequences could be deadly. As Elias entered the central plaza leading to the arena, he could see the preparations underway. Alien spectators of every imaginable shape and color moved through the stands, discussing strategies, bets, and the inevitable spectacle of combat. The sheer scale of the arena was breathtaking. It stretched higher than any human skyscraper, with multiple tiers, suspended platforms, and a floor designed for every type of combat imaginable. From above, drones hovered, scanning the crowd and ensuring order, while holographic screens displayed the competitors' stats in vivid detail. Elias took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had not come here merely to fight. He had come to prove something greater. Humanity was often underestimated, dismissed as weak or insignificant by the more advanced species of the galaxy. This challenge was more than a personal test. It was a chance to show that human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability could stand shoulder to shoulder with even the most formidable opponents. A group of Zephyra officials approached, their multi-limbed forms moving in a way that was elegant and alien to human eyes. They handed Elias a ceremonial cloak, which he accepted with a nod. He noticed the subtle glances of the crowd, some curious, some mocking, but all watching intently. Word had spread quickly that a human had dared to take on Lady Zyra's champion. Already, whispers were circulating. Could this fragile species actually have a chance? As he moved closer to the arena's entrance, Elias' mind raced with strategy. He knew the champion was physically superior, enhanced with genetic modifications and combat training from birth. Strength and speed were advantages the human could not match directly. But humans had other tools: creativity, quick thinking, and an ability to use the environment in unexpected ways. He had observed the arena from hidden vantage points, noting areas where shadows could provide cover, where structures could be used as barriers or traps, and where speed and timing could create openings. The sound of drums echoed through the plaza, signaling the beginning of the spectacle. A hush fell over the crowd as Lady Zyra herself appeared at the highest balcony, her presence commanding silence. She was as striking as the legend said, with a form both regal and intimidating. Her eyes scanned the arena and the competitors with an almost predatory curiosity. When they settled on Elias, a faint, mocking smile crossed her face. "You dare challenge my champion," she called, her voice carrying effortlessly across the expanse. "A human! Do you not know your place in this galaxy?" Some were shocked that a human had spoken with such confidence. Others, especially those familiar with Lady Zyra's usual dealings, were curious to see how this would unfold. Elias felt a flicker of determination. The stakes were high, but the moment demanded courage. He had trained for this, planned for it, and now it was time to face the reality of the challenge. The arena gates opened with a loud clang, revealing the champion. A wave of gasps swept through the audience. The fighter was immense, every muscle enhanced and perfectly conditioned for combat. His movements were precise, almost mechanical, reflecting years of training and genetic optimization. The human audience members felt a shiver run down their spines, while aliens who had seen thousands of battles regarded the challenger with respect tinged with skepticism. Elias stepped forward, taking in the sheer size of his opponent. He knew he could not match him in a direct fight. Strength alone would not win this battle. Every step he took, every movement he made had to be calculated. His mind shifted into problem-solving mode, analyzing the champion's posture, anticipating how he might strike and where weaknesses could be exploited. Humans had faced overwhelming odds before. This was just another challenge, albeit a monumental one. Lady Zyra's voice rang out again, clear and commanding. "Let the battle begin. Show us your courage, human. Show us if your species has what it takes to survive." Every move he made had to reflect not just skill, but ingenuity. He darted across the arena floor, using obstacles as cover, bouncing off walls, and staying just outside the champion's reach. Every attack from his opponent was met with quick thinking rather than force. He had studied these patterns, and though the champion's power was overwhelming, predictability in timing and structure gave Elias an edge. Humans might not be the strongest, but they could think in ways no one expected. Minutes stretched into tense minutes, and already the crowd was captivated. Elias' movements were a combination of agility, strategy, and improvisation. He forced the champion to expend energy in futile attacks, dodging in ways that frustrated even the genetically enhanced fighter. Some spectators began to murmur admiration. Perhaps the human could do this. Perhaps humanity had a spark that even the most advanced species could not ignore. Despite the intensity, Elias remained focused. He knew the battle was far from over. This opening was just a test, a way to feel out the champion and set the stage for what was to come. His mind raced with calculations, analyzing strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. He reminded himself that humans had survived countless threats by being clever, adaptive, and daring. Today was no different. As the sun dipped lower, casting the arena in shifting light and long shadows, Elias felt a surge of determination. This was more than survival. This was a chance to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The battle had begun, and with every move, Elias was proving that courage, intelligence, and resilience could stand against even the most fearsome opponents. Lady Zyra watched from her balcony, intrigued. She had expected a quick victory, but the human moved with precision, intelligence, and courage. She tilted her head slightly, curiosity replacing the initial mockery. Perhaps there was more to this species than she had realized. The battle continued, and Elias' mind never stopped. Every dodge, every feint, every calculated movement was a message. Humans were not to be underestimated. And as the twin suns set over Zephyra, the arena seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if this human could truly rise to the occasion. For Elias, this was only the beginning. The true test lay ahead, but he faced it with steady determination. He had entered the arena to prove humanity's worth, and already he felt the spark of hope that could ignite an entire species. The crowd watched, the tension building with each heartbeat, as the human prepared to face a challenge unlike any he had encountered before. In that moment, every spectator, human and alien alike, understood one thing. The fight was about more than strength. It was about courage, intellect, and the unbreakable spirit of a species that refused to be overlooked. And so, the first chapter of humanity's rise in the galaxy began. one daring move at a time, as Captain Elias Vorn stood in the arena, ready to defy expectations and prove that humans, though small and underestimated, could achieve greatness. After the first clash in the arena, Elias retreated to a quiet corner behind the high walls of Zephara's central city. Though the crowd had been captivated, he knew the real battle was only beginning. A single fight would not secure humanity's place in the galaxy. He had to prepare carefully, study the champion, and use every advantage that human ingenuity could offer. His mind raced as he considered the challenge ahead. The streets outside the arena were alive with activity, alien merchants calling out, selling exotic foods and technological devices that Elias could barely recognize. The city of Zephara was unlike anything he had ever seen. Massive spires of metal and stone twisted toward the sky, connected by glowing walkways that hovered above the ground. Humans often felt insignificant in the presence of such grand structures, but Elias had always believed that size and strength were not the only ways to win a fight. A clever strategy, applied at the right moment, could overturn even the most formidable opponent. Elias moved cautiously through the city, keeping to the shadows where he could. He was not alone in his observation. A group of Zephara rebels, members of a hidden faction opposed to Lady Zyra's authoritarian rule, had been watching him since he arrived. They had heard about the human who dared to challenge the champion, and curiosity had drawn them closer. Though initially wary, they soon recognized the potential in Elias. He was not like other humans who arrived on Zephara seeking fame or fortune. He had a purpose, and he had the determination to see it through. The leader of the group, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 3 eyes named Thrix, approached Elias cautiously. "You are brave, human," Thrix said in a low voice. "Most of your kind would have fled long ago, but to face Lady Zyra's champion, that is something we did not expect." "I'm not here for myself," he replied. "I'm here for humanity. If I can defeat her champion, humans will be respected. But I cannot do it alone. I need information about the arena, about the champion, and any advantage I can find. We can show you places in the arena where you could hide, where you could set traps. We can give you knowledge that even Lady Zyra does not expect to be used against her champion." In reality, humans thrived on thinking differently, seeing patterns where others did not, and using tools and environment in creative ways. With Thrix's help, he could develop a strategy that might allow him to survive the champion's first attack and, eventually, overcome him. Over the next several hours, Elias and the rebels moved through the arena's hidden passages and observation decks. He studied the champion's movements, noting how he struck, how he positioned himself, and how his strength sometimes made him predictable. The champion relied heavily on power and aggression, which left openings for someone who could move differently, think faster, and anticipate the attacks. Elias made detailed notes, drawing sketches of the terrain and potential escape routes, timing the champion's attacks down to the second. "Remember," Thrix warned, "you cannot beat him in a straight fight. You must use your mind, not your muscles. Your species survives through cleverness, and cleverness is your greatest weapon." Humans had survived countless threats on Earth, from natural disasters to hostile rivals, not by being the strongest but by being adaptable, inventive, and brave. Today, he would prove that humanity's greatest weapon was its intelligence and courage. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Elias began practicing his maneuvers. He used walls and pillars to test his speed, measured distances between cover points, and rehearsed feints and dodges. Every step, every turn was calculated. He was aware of every heartbeat, every muscle, and every movement in the space around him. He knew that even a single misstep could cost him the fight, or worse, his life. But he also knew that preparation was the key. By studying, practicing, and thinking creatively, he could turn his apparent weakness into strength. Night fell over Zephara, and the city transformed under the light of glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The streets seemed quieter, though Elias knew danger could be anywhere. Lady Zyra did not tolerate failure lightly, and spies and enforcers were everywhere. Yet he felt no fear, only focus. Every step he took, every calculation he made brought him closer to victory. During a brief pause, Elias reflected on why he was here. Humanity had always been underestimated by other species. Their colonies were often dismissed as primitive, their technology considered inferior, and their courage doubted. But humans had a spark that no alien could match: the will to survive, the ability to think creatively under pressure, and the courage to face impossible odds. Today, that spark would shine brighter than ever. As the night deepened, Thrix guided Elias to a hidden chamber beneath the arena. Here, they could observe the champion's training without being seen. The champion moved with terrifying precision, practicing strikes, footwork, and agility drills. His movements were faster than anything Elias had seen, yet there were subtle habits that could be exploited. He noticed moments where the champion paused slightly, moments where his weight shifted in predictable patterns, and moments where his strength worked against him by reducing his flexibility. Elias committed every detail to memory, rehearsing mental scenarios and imagining how he could respond. He visualized the arena, the paths he would take, the traps he could set, and the timing required to turn each opportunity into an advantage. His mind raced, but he remained calm. Humans were at their best when thinking under pressure, and this pressure would be his ally. As dawn approached, Elias reviewed his plan once more. He knew that winning would not be easy and that every decision mattered. He would not rely on strength alone nor on luck. Every maneuver would be deliberate, every action calculated, and every strategy designed to turn the champion's power against him. Thrix watched him silently and said, "You have the courage, human. You have the mind. Now you must have the heart to see it through. The champion is formidable, but he is not perfect. Your strength lies in your ingenuity and in the courage to act where others hesitate." If he could harness those qualities fully, he could achieve the impossible. As the first rays of sunlight touched the arena, Elias felt ready. He was no longer just a human standing against an alien champion. He was a representative of his species, carrying the hopes and dreams of billions across the galaxy. He felt a surge of determination and pride. No matter what happened, he would fight not just to survive, but to prove that humans could rise to any challenge. In the quiet moments before the battle resumed, Elias thought about what lay ahead. He would face a physically superior opponent, one designed to dominate any foe. But humans had always turned disadvantage into opportunity. They had survived, thrived, and built civilizations despite overwhelming odds. Today would be no different. With each passing moment, the arena grew more alive. The sounds of the city, the distant hum of technology, and the anticipation of the spectators all blended together into a symphony of tension. Elias took a deep breath, focusing on his purpose. This was not a fight for glory or personal fame. It was a fight for the recognition of his entire species. The hour approached when the battle would begin again. Elias adjusted his stance, feeling the ground beneath his feet, sensing every detail of the terrain and preparing mentally for the encounter. He was calm, focused, and ready. Humans might not have the raw power of other species, but they had something more important: a mind capable of outthinking the strongest opponent, a spirit that refused to break, and a courage that could inspire even the most doubtful observers. As the sun fully rose over Zephyra, Elias stepped into the arena once more, fully prepared. The champion stood across from him, still imposing, still powerful, but now facing a foe who would not simply react, but plan, adapt, and challenge him at every turn. The battle was about to enter a new phase, one where strategy, intelligence, and courage would be tested to the limit. Elias felt a spark of confidence. Today, humans would show the galaxy that their strength lay not just in muscle or technology, but in their mind, their heart, and their unyielding will. The fight had begun in earnest, and the story of humanity's rise in the galaxy was unfolding, one daring step at a time. Every movement, every decision, every moment now mattered. Elias was ready to turn the impossible into possibility, to prove that humans, though underestimated, were capable of achieving greatness. And with that determination burning in his chest, he faced the champion, fully aware that this battle would define not just his future, but the future of all humanity. The arena buzzed with anticipation as the crowd waited for the next phase of the battle. The twin sons of Zephyra had climbed higher, bathing the Colosseum in a brilliant golden light that glinted off the polished metal walls and the suspended platforms. Elias stood at the edge of the arena, calm but alert, his eyes scanning every detail of the terrain. This was the moment where preparation would meet action, where strategy would collide with raw power, and where the strength of humanity's ingenuity would be tested against one of the galaxy's most feared champions. The champion's entrance was as dramatic as always. The genetically enhanced fighter moved with precision, his muscles coiled and ready, his every step radiating confidence and dominance. The audience erupted with cheers and excited murmurs, alien voices blending in a chorus of anticipation. Lady Zyra, high on her balcony, watched intently, a faint smile on her face, still skeptical that a human could pose any real challenge. Elias took a deep breath. He had spent hours studying the champion's habits, analyzing weaknesses, and plotting potential maneuvers. He knew he could not confront the champion head-on. Strength and speed alone would overwhelm any human, but humans had a different kind of weapon: ingenuity. Every movement he made, every decision he took in the arena, would be part of a larger plan designed to exploit the champion's predictable patterns. As the signal sounded, the champion charged forward. His first strike was a powerful lunge aimed to overwhelm Elias immediately. The human ducked and rolled, feeling the air shift as the blow passed just above him. The force of the strike caused a ripple through the arena floor, shaking dust and debris loose from nearby pillars. The crowd gasped at the display of power, but Elias used the moment to calculate his next move. He darted behind a low barricade, keeping himself low and moving quickly. The champion's strikes were strong, but Elias had noticed a rhythm, small pauses between blows that, if timed correctly, could be exploited. He adjusted his movements to anticipate the next attack, shifting his weight, using the environment for cover, and carefully positioning himself in spots that could give him an advantage. Minutes passed like hours. Every action from Elias was deliberate. He baited the champion into overextending his strikes, then dodged just in time, forcing the opponent to expend energy unnecessarily. The crowd began to murmur in surprise. A human, so small and seemingly weak, was avoiding the champion's attacks with skill and speed. Whispers spread through the arena. Perhaps this human was not as helpless as everyone had believed. Elias moved across the arena with careful precision. He used walls, pillars, and suspended platforms as shields, sometimes pausing to observe the champion's next move. He noticed patterns, slight hesitations, shifts in balance, and predictable footwork that could be used to his advantage. Every instinct he had honed in previous battles and survival situations now guided him. Humans might not have raw strength, but they excelled in creativity, adaptation, and strategy. The champion struck again, faster this time, aiming a powerful side sweep. Elias leaped just in time, using the momentum to land behind a pillar. He felt a surge of satisfaction, not from pride, but from knowing that his strategy was working. Every dodge, every feint was drawing the champion into a position where he could be manipulated, where his strength became less of an advantage and more of a predictable element in Elias' plan. Lady Zyra's eyes narrowed. She had expected the human to falter quickly, to make a mistake under the pressure of the arena. Yet Elias remained focused, calm, and deliberate. She could see the human using the arena itself as a weapon, turning the champion's power against him without ever touching him directly. A faint curiosity replaced her initial skepticism. Perhaps humans, she thought, were more dangerous than she had assumed. Elias shifted his position to a higher platform, forcing the champion to follow. The move required careful timing. One misstep could leave him exposed. As he climbed, he dropped small, lightweight objects strategically to distract the champion, forcing him to look down and adjust his stance. Each small action, though seemingly insignificant, contributed to a larger strategy designed to wear the champion down and create openings for a decisive maneuver. The champion roared in frustration, realizing that his usual tactics were ineffective. His strikes, though powerful, were being dodged or deflected in ways he had not anticipated. He tried to change his approach, adding feints and rapid sequences, but Elias anticipated the pattern changes, adjusting his movements with a combination of instinct and pre-planned strategy. The crowd could sense the tension rising, the thrill of seeing a human survive against such an overwhelmingly strong opponent. Elias paused for a brief moment to catch his breath, though his heart was racing. He observed the champion carefully, noting subtle shifts in stance and the way his attacks were being executed. Small advantages were accumulating, not in brute force, but in timing and environmental control. Humans had survived countless threats by using such advantages, and today, that same principle guided every step he took. As the battle continued, Elias found himself moving closer to the center of the arena. He had noticed a particular arrangement of platforms and pillars that, if used correctly, could allow him to trap the champion in a confined space temporarily. The plan required perfect timing and precision. One false move could end everything. He focused, steadying his breathing and prepared to act. The champion lunged again, more aggressively this time, his strikes faster and more unpredictable. Elias dodged, weaving between pillars and platforms, using speed and agility to remain just out of reach. Then, with a calculated leap, he maneuvered behind the champion, forcing him to step onto a raised platform that was slightly unstable. The champion faltered, losing balance for a brief moment. Elias seized the opportunity, guiding him with careful nudges and positioning toward the area he had scouted earlier. The crowd erupted as the champion became trapped in a smaller section of the arena. Elias' strategy was working. He did not rely on brute strength. He relied on intelligence, observation, and creativity. Every human in the audience could see the truth. Even against a being far stronger and faster, a human could survive, and even dominate, by thinking differently. The champion struggled, attempting to regain control. His strength was formidable, but the environment, combined with Elias' clever maneuvers, forced him into disadvantageous positions repeatedly. Elias remained calm, moving with precision, using the champion's own momentum against him. He had learned that patience and timing were as crucial as any physical ability. As the battle wore on, Elias' mind remained sharp, continuously adapting to the champion's adjustments. He noticed that while the champion was physically dominant, he relied heavily on predictable sequences. By observing these sequences and adjusting in real time, Elias could create openings that seemed impossible to others. The humans watching in the crowd began to cheer louder, inspired by the sight of one of their own holding his own against a creature considered invincible. Elias' strategy was not just to survive, but to gain the upper hand without causing permanent harm. He knew that the champion, though formidable, was still capable of being reasoned with indirectly through tactics and positioning. Humans had a long history of winning battles through strategy rather than sheer force, and Elias embodied that principle perfectly. Every move, every decision, was a calculated effort to turn disadvantage into opportunity. Lady Zyra observed in silence, her expression unreadable. She had underestimated the human, assuming that cleverness alone could not overcome raw power. Yet here was evidence that she had been wrong. Elias was proving that humans could think creatively under pressure, using their surroundings, instincts, and intelligence to survive and even thrive against overwhelming odds. The sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the arena floor. Elias used the shifting light to his advantage, moving quickly between shadows, keeping the champion slightly disoriented. The fight had become as much about psychology as it was about physical skill. Elias understood that humans often succeeded where others failed because they could adapt, improvise, and use every available tool to their advantage. With a sudden move, Elias directed the champion toward a series of interconnected platforms, designed so that a single misstep would force the opponent to pause and recalibrate. The champion stumbled slightly, and Elias seized the moment to maneuver to a higher vantage point. From this position, he could observe and anticipate the next set of attacks, maintaining control over the flow of the battle. The crowd could sense the tension and skill in every movement. Cheers, gasps, and whispers filled the air. Humans and aliens alike were witnessing something extraordinary. A human using intelligence, strategy, and courage to compete with a being that had been considered unbeatable. Elias' determination, adaptability, and observation were turning the tide in ways that no one had predicted. As the final minutes of this phase of the battle approached, Elias felt a deep sense of focus and clarity. Every calculation, every maneuver had brought him to this point. He was not just surviving, he was shaping the flow of the fight, turning the champion's strengths into temporary weaknesses, and proving that human ingenuity could triumph even in the most challenging circumstances. With one final leap, Elias repositioned himself, creating an opening that he knew could lead to a decisive advantage. The champion, frustrated and fatigued from the relentless mental and physical pressure, fell into the trap he had meticulously prepared. For the first time, the crowd saw the champion struggling, unsure, and vulnerable. Elias took a moment to steady his breathing. The arena held its collective breath. Humans had always relied on adaptability, intelligence, and courage to survive. Today, those same qualities were on full display. He was proving that humans, though physically smaller and less powerful than many alien species, could rise to the occasion through ingenuity, strategy, and perseverance. And in that tense, electrified moment, Elias felt a surge of confidence. The battle was far from over, but the first major test had been passed. He had survived, adapted, and turned the champion's power into an advantage. More importantly, he had demonstrated what humans were capable of: courage, intelligence, and unyielding determination, qualities that no genetic modification or raw strength could match. The twin suns of Zephyra continued to shine brightly, reflecting off the arena walls, illuminating the path forward. Elias knew that the fight would continue, that challenges would grow more intense, and that victory was far from certain. Yet he was ready. He had proven that humans could adapt, think, and survive, even against impossible odds. As the champion regained his balance and prepared for the next engagement, Elias' mind was already planning the moves ahead. Every decision mattered. Every action could create a new opening. The fight was not just about strength. It was about strategy, courage, and the enduring human spirit. And in that moment, the crowd understood that humanity had arrived, not with brute force, but with brilliance, determination, and the will to succeed against all odds. The arena was filled with tension. Every spectator, human and alien alike, was on edge, watching the battle unfold. Elias had survived the initial assault, proven his intelligence, and managed to use strategy against raw power. Yet he knew the most difficult part of the fight was still ahead. The champion was not defeated. He was only frustrated, and frustration often made even the most skilled opponent dangerous. Elias adjusted his stance, taking in every detail of the terrain, calculating every possible move the champion could make. The arena had shifted under the influence of their movements. Some pillars were chipped, platforms slightly tilted, and debris scattered across the floor. Elias saw opportunities in these changes. Humans had always adapted to their surroundings, using what others ignored as tools for survival. Every piece of the arena was now a potential advantage. He could make the champion's strength work against him by controlling the battlefield. The champion charged again, faster and more aggressive than before. His strikes were precise, his attacks relentless. Elias dodged, weaving through pillars and using shadows to his advantage. The crowd gasped at his agility. Each maneuver was calculated to tire the champion, to force him to commit mistakes, and to create openings for a more decisive strike. Elias remembered Thrix's advice. Patience and observation were crucial. Humans thrived under pressure because they could think, adapt, and improvise when others could not. He had learned to read patterns, anticipate moves, and use misdirection. This was not just about surviving blows, it was about controlling the flow of the battle. The champion lunged again, aiming a powerful downward strike. Elias rolled beneath it, narrowly avoiding the impact. The force of the blow caused the arena floor to vibrate, sending small shards of stone flying. Elias felt the energy of the fight, the rhythm of attacks and counters, and he adjusted his movements instinctively. Every decision mattered. One miscalculation could be fatal, yet he remained calm, trusting his preparation and his instincts. As the battle continued, Elias noticed the champion's breathing becoming heavier. Strength could only take a fighter so far when exhaustion set in. Humans, despite being physically weaker, often had endurance and patience as allies. Elias slowed his movements deliberately, forcing the champion to chase, to expend energy unnecessarily. It was a subtle strategy, almost invisible to the audience, but it would become crucial in the next phase of the fight. Elias moved toward a section of the arena he had studied closely with the rebels. It was a narrow corridor formed by tall pillars, offering limited space for movement. The champion followed, unaware of the trap being set. Elias knew that in confined spaces, the champion's strength would be less effective. His size, power, and speed would become liabilities. Humans, small and agile, could maneuver where others could not. With a deft movement, Elias positioned the champion so that his attacks would hit the pillars instead of him. The impact caused vibrations and loud echoes throughout the arena. The champion recoiled slightly, frustrated and momentarily disoriented. Elias seized the opportunity, using the champion's own momentum to force him further into the corridor. Each step was precise, every action part of a larger plan. The crowd watched in awe. Some had expected the champion to crush the human long ago. Instead, they were witnessing a spectacle of intelligence, creativity, and courage. Humans, they realized, had something that could not be measured by strength or enhancement alone, the ability to think under pressure and adapt in real time. Lady Zyra leaned forward, intrigued. She had expected a quick, predictable fight, but Elias had exceeded all expectations. The human was not just surviving, he was controlling the battle, turning the champion's power into weakness, and creating openings that could lead to victory. A faint respect replaced her initial skepticism. Perhaps humans were more capable than she had allowed herself to believe. Elias moved quickly, using the corridor's narrow confines to his advantage. He dodged a series of powerful strikes and feints, forcing the champion to overcommit and stumble. With careful timing, he created a situation where the champion's next attack would propel him directly into a trap. A combination of pillars, steps, and debris that Elias had memorized and rehearsed. The champion fell into the trap, momentarily caught and struggling to regain balance. Elias did not attack recklessly. He used this moment to reposition himself, observing the opponent's reactions and calculating the next sequence of moves. He understood that humans survived and thrived not through brute force, but through observation, patience, and the clever use of available resources. The arena erupted with cheers. Spectators could see that the human was not just clever but courageous, holding his own against an overwhelmingly strong opponent. Humans had always been underestimated, yet here was proof that they could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Elias' movements were precise, calculated, and inspired. Every action was a demonstration of strategy, intellect, and unyielding determination. The champion regained his balance and lunged again, this time with more calculated attacks. Elias anticipated each strike, using his agility to dodge and reposition. He had learned to read not just the champion's physical movements, but also subtle cues, breathing patterns, muscle tension, and slight shifts in stance. Humans had long survived by observing, analyzing, and adapting to their environment, and Elias embodied that principle perfectly. As the battle progressed, Elias began to create small, controlled distractions. He manipulated the environment subtly, causing minor collapses and noises that forced the champion to pause or redirect his attention. Each distraction was part of a larger plan, a way to gradually wear down his opponent's confidence and control. Humans often succeeded in situations where others failed because they could think creatively and improvise, turning disadvantages into advantages. Elias' heart raced, but his mind remained clear. The fight was intense, and every second counted. He moved like a shadow, striking only when necessary, dodging when needed, and using the arena as an extension of his strategy. The champion, though powerful, was now reacting to the human's plans rather than dictating the flow of battle. Elias had shifted the momentum without ever engaging in a direct, head-on clash. Lady Zyra's eyes narrowed. She realized that she had underestimated the human. Strength alone was not enough to win a fight. Intelligence, patience, and courage were equally powerful weapons. Elias had demonstrated that humans could think, adapt, and act with precision under pressure. Her champion, she noted, had never faced an opponent who could anticipate moves, manipulate the environment, and remain calm in the face of overwhelming force. Elias saw an opening. The champion had overextended again, his balance slightly off. He moved quickly, guiding him into a section of the arena where a series of pillars created a funnel. The champion struggled, hitting obstacles and losing precious seconds of movement. Elias' plan was working. By using strategy and environmental advantage, he had turned the champion's superior strength into a liability. The crowd erupted with excitement. Humans in the audience cheered loudly, inspired by the sight of one of their own overcoming such odds. Aliens murmured among themselves, some skeptical, others impressed. It was clear to everyone watching that the human had achieved something remarkable. He had survived, adapted, and now controlled the flow of the battle. Elias paused briefly to catch his breath, then assessed his options. He knew that victory was not guaranteed, but he had created a situation where the champion's power could be mitigated. By continuing to use strategy, patience, and observation, he could create an opportunity for a decisive action. Humans had always used their minds to survive, and now Elias was proving that principle on a galactic stage. The champion lunged one final time, with aggression fueled by frustration. Elias anticipated the move perfectly. Using a combination of agility and timing, he dodged, guiding the champion's momentum into a trap he had set earlier. The champion stumbled, temporarily immobilized by the careful positioning of obstacles and platforms. Elias moved in, ready to act decisively. The arena fell silent. Every spectator, human and alien, held their breath. Elias had turned the tide of the battle without resorting to brute force. He had demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and courage could overcome strength and aggression. Humans had always relied on these qualities to survive, and now they were being celebrated on a scale far greater than anything Elias had imagined. Lady Zyra leaned forward, her expression unreadable. She had expected to watch a human fail quickly, to reaffirm the superiority of her champion. Instead, she witnessed a display of ingenuity, courage, and unyielding determination. Elias had shown that humans could think strategically, adapt quickly, and use every advantage available. The champion, formidable though he was now at a distinct disadvantage. Elias moved carefully, never underestimating his opponent. He maintained a steady rhythm, controlling the pace of the battle, and guiding the champion through the environment he had memorized. Every movement, every calculation, was part of a larger plan designed to create a final opportunity for victory. Humans had always succeeded by thinking differently, and Elias embodied that principle fully. The crowd erupted in anticipation as Elias positioned himself for the next phase of the fight. He had survived, adapted, and now controlled the flow of the battle. Humans had always relied on intelligence, courage, and resilience, and now the galaxy could see it firsthand. Elias was ready to turn preparation and strategy into triumph, demonstrating that even against overwhelming odds, human ingenuity and determination could prevail. With the champion temporarily trapped, Elias knew that the decisive moment was approaching. The fight had tested endurance, strategy, and adaptability. Now it was time to demonstrate the full potential of human ingenuity. Every step, every decision, every movement was deliberate. The humans watching could feel the tension, the excitement, and the pride of seeing one of their own defy expectations. And in that electrified moment, Elias understood the truth of humanity's strength. It was not in brute force, enhancements, or overwhelming power, but in the mind, the spirit, and the courage to act with intelligence and determination, no matter the odds.